Well, hello and welcome to episode 338 of the Total Saints podcast, your home for all things Southampton Football Club. And before we start, a huge thank you as ever to our TSP patron community, who we couldn't make the show each week without their loyal support. And on that note, we'd like to welcome Pablo LMC, who has joined the TSP supporter tier on YouTube this week. Thanks again, and to all of you, we really appreciate your support. So in what can possibly only be described as a masterstroke of good timing, Martin Stark is off this weekend. My name is Neil Crespin, and joining me this week, and now all regretting not booking this weekend off, Steve Grant, the owner of Saints Web, Glen, Cour, writer of the blog League 1-10, and Alfie House, the senior Southampton reporter of the Daily Echo. And whilst the clocks may have changed this weekend, how it feels to be a Saints fan definitely hasn't changed at all. So coming up this week on the podcast, it was a case of deja vu on Tuesday with back-to-back 3-1 defeats at Bristol City, albeit 2 seasons apart. But of course, at a ground where we haven't had a result for about 50 years, what did we expect? Another unbeaten run brought to an end by the Robins. And then 4 days later, we arrive at Ewood Park, sitting 18th in the table to play one of the few sides actually still below us. More of that later. So let's start at Bristol City. Seems a long time ago already. Hopes were high, relatively, after the performance against Swansea. We started very brightly, to be fair, fueled in no small way by the then new fans' favourite Sienza. Wonderful assist from Charles for Armstrong to score a much-needed opener. So, quick summary. Most of the possession, dominated play for 30 minutes. Not much from City. We go one up, so inevitably, of course, we concede on the counter-attack 3 minutes later, 1-1 into the break. And to say it was all downhill from there is somewhat of an understatement. Where on earth are we going to start? Glen, I'll come to you.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, I mean, as you kind of alluded to, it's kind of like a game of 3/3. There was, I mean, the first third was Bristol City sitting 11 men behind the ball, basically, and allowing us to play in front of them, and we didn't really do very much. Eventually, we started sort of getting in behind, and that culminated in the opening goal, which was a lovely ball from Shay Charles and a really good finish by Adam Armstrong, showing what he can do occasionally. So that was great, and at that point, it was a pattern that we've seen before previous games this season, where we totally went to bits as soon as we scored, which is the most bizarre thing that we seem to do, where we react badly to good things, we react badly to bad things. It's just we're an all-round team in that way. And immediately Bristol City scored, shocking goal. Everyone will point at the Nathan Wood missed kicking it. But the additional problem, which most people seem to have missed, is that Ryan Fraser was 5 yards behind everybody, playing the guy on side. He probably would have been given offside if Fraser was awake. Bear in mind he's supposed to be a wing back, so further up the pitch than level with the centre backs, or allegedly level with the centre backs. So that was poor. Into the middle third, where it kind of was rubbish, but we had a couple of chances. Cameron Archer clean through. Nice ball by Adam Armstrong to put him through. In almost exact, and in Armstrong had already shown him how to do it, but he totally ignored that and just blasted it at the keeper. So that was very poor. Start the second half. I'm struggling to remember now. Oh, it was Sienza across the top of the penalty area and then smashing it against the bar.
Hit the bar, yeah.
Shay Charles put a header over the bar, and then it's just, I mean, this goal really is one of those things. The second Bristol City goal is just lucky. Shots going nowhere, hits a player who's trying to get out of the way, bounces onto the post and bounces back to a guy with an open goal, and it's just, you can't do much about that, but you can react and roll your sleeves up and get back into it. And we didn't. Casper Yander gave the ball away on the halfway line. The guy ran through and scored. Good finish, and that was it. Game done. And the last 20 minutes, was just crap. We didn't do anything. Never looked like we were going to score. Joe Robinson from memory, had a bit of a flurry in the 94th, 95th minute. That was it. It was just garbage. Goals against us were easy. Again, we just didn't make the opposition work hard for their goals. I came away from that game thinking, that old thing about you judge a manager by what he does with the resources he's got available. But to be honest, I came away from that game thinking that the resources that he's got available are so bad at the moment in so many respects that it was hard to judge. But I did get annoyed with the fact that we kept basically with 5 defenders, even when we were 2 goals behind at the end of the game. I know Alfie addressed that with Will Still after the game, but no, overall that game sucked. It's another one that we just didn't. Once we went 1 up, we were just didn't have a clue about how to play the rest of the game. And though we missed chances again, but ultimately we threw the points in the bin, and we should have certainly got something from that game.
Yeah. Well, if you think that game sucked, you wait till we start talking about the Blackburn game.
Yeah, I'm leaving that one.
Alfie is our resident Bristol City fan, of course. The manager said afterwards in the press conference that the first half, we'd been in total control, utterly dominated the game, had 2 or 3 really big chances. To be fair, that could just be a copy and paste across almost every game this season, couldn't it?
Yeah, it could be. And there's elements of that we'll get into in the Blackburn game as well. But just it being a copy and paste, and to be fair, before I get into this, I should clarify, I was not enjoying Tuesday night, I can promise you. I really wasn't. I would have preferred Saints to win. Whether you believe me or not, I would have done. But
no.
Anyway... it doesn't make it not true, the fact that it's a copy and paste statement. I mean, Glen's already highlighted all of the moments, but even before the goal, Armstrong had a similar chance that he put over the bar from a Charles pass. He obviously scored the second one, the brilliant Charles pass, but after that he missed the target again. Cameron Archer had the big one, Sienza at the bar, Charles heads over, all the things that Glen's already spoken about. And that second goal is a freak of nature. I think people have sort of criticised Alex McCarthy for it. I sympathise with him a little bit because it comes off the post. And he's clearly, it looks a bit like a Benny Hill sketch, but he's clearly trying to avoid knocking it straight back into the goal. He's just unfortunately unaware that there's somebody right behind him there to tap it in. And
I'm not sure whether I need to explain for younger viewers who Benny Hill is. Do we let that go on?
He's buried in Southampton, so I think a lot of the fans should be
a very local, topical reference.
Yeah, exactly. But Caspiander obviously passed it straight to him for the third goal. So I think Will Steele's going to come in for his fair share of criticism in the second half of this pod. But I agree with Glen. I think I didn't feel that way after Tuesday night. The only thing you could say is what Glen mentioned about the 3 centre-backs still on the pitch. And I asked him, and he just sort of said, well, if I haven't got any fullbacks, I can't play a back 4, which at the time, obviously, didn't have Mads Roerslev and Elias Yellett through injury, which is fair enough. But at that point, you're 2 goals down in the 90th minute, just play a back 2 for all that it matters. You're losing the game. So, throw caution to the wind a little bit. But, the players on Tuesday night let the manager down. They let the club down, let themselves down. And that was how I felt after it. But the more interesting comment I thought from Will Steele, rather than the copy and paste job, was when I asked him, does he feel that the players are actually questioning themselves? Are they criticising themselves? Do they, almost words to the effect of, are they even really bothered? And I guess, of course they're bothered, but are they questioning themselves? Are they really feeling it? And I think his answer was that based on the comments they've made, what he hears from them, what he can feel, that he doubts whether they are questioning themselves. And that, for a manager, it's a surefire way to lose the dressing room, probably, over time. But again, that doesn't make it not true. And it might well be true. I mean, it's one of the feelings that, based on what we see on the pitch, my experiences with some players, my own observations, it's one that I find it hard to disagree with, and it's probably one of many reasons why we're in the shit that we're in. But I think are the players sat there questioning themselves, beating themselves up over it, knowing that they've missed chances, let the manager down again, let the club down again? I'm sure a lot of them are, but maybe not enough. And maybe that's why we're where we are. But yeah, that's the sentiment after Tuesday night. Things will be a little bit different when we come on to Saturday.
Yeah, for sure. And it's kind of a question we've asked of the players, whether they care, whatever language you want to use about that. And I know, a couple of seasons ago, we were all getting really irritated about seeing them all clowning around at Staplewood on the social media posts and, doing sort of fun things when actually we're all sort of crying into our beer every evening. I'll come to you in a moment, Steve. Just want to stick with you, Alfie, on the press conferences and things. So I guess out of all of us, you spend more time, up close with Will still. Do you think his demeanour has changed, or how much do you think his demeanour has changed from maybe the first couple of games of the season when you're sitting down with him to where he is now?
Well, what I would say is when he came in on Tuesday, I thought I've never seen a man so depressed and so beaten down. And I think he, after a defeat, he does come in a bit dour and a bit solemn. I don't know if he's changed necessarily. I think he's been pretty authentically himself the whole way through. I know there's a lot of discourse about the manager's sort of attitude and demeanour. And I suppose the only fair point you can make is you need a manager who inspires a group and who brings everybody together and can lead everybody. And that is a fair comment, but we don't know what he's like with the players. We don't know what he's like on the training ground. So he might well be the most charismatic bloke in the world in the training ground. I think that there's a big discussion about managers' attitudes and all this sort of thing. I personally think it's mostly rubbish. If he was winning games, people would love it. They say, "Oh, he's so he's chilled out. He's just like one of us. He's a normal guy. He's honest." All this sort of stuff. But because we're losing every week, it's he doesn't care, or he's boring, or he's not passionate. When Nathan Jones was coming in doing cartwheels and making everybody laugh, everybody hated him because he's not taking it seriously enough. He's clowning around. Russell Martin's too arrogant because he defends himself, which again that might well be true. But yeah, I think basically it only matters the results, what people think. If Will still was winning games, they would not be moaning or complaining about his demeanour, in my opinion. But yeah, the point about the players, that's possible, but we don't know.
Okay. Steve, come to you. As we've already mentioned, lots of criticism that the manager stuck with that sort of five at the back when clearly, we're chasing a game. Your thoughts on that, but also is that the sort of action that leads to the criticism we were just talking about?
It does, but I always think games like that have got to be taken in the context of where they sit. For the second time in the last month, we've had two back-to-back away games covering Tuesday and Saturday, and obviously you've also then had a game on the previous weekend as well, and you've got to manage your resources, and it's difficult to do so. Whilst I think at times managers do get, I think, rightly criticised for looking too far in advance and sort of saying, "Well, we're going to be a little bit clever here, and we're going to rest this key player for this game," and that sort of thing. But I do kind of think with certainly with the illness stuff that came up sort of later in the week here, but also knowing what players' fitness situations have been like in the last few weeks. So if we think Yander missed a game or two, didn't he, with a problem? Obviously, both fullbacks were unavailable for Tuesday night, which we actually thought was going to be a more long-term problem, and actually Roerslev suddenly becoming available for Saturday was a bit of a bonus. So I do think you've kind of got to work with what you've got. But you've also got to have probably an eye on at least the next game in terms of recovery times. Certain players are not very good at recovery. Other players are carrying little injuries. So maybe while you kind of have them on the bench for 15 minutes, if there's a specific scenario, maybe you're not going to kind of turn to them unless absolutely necessary, because you don't think that their bodies can cope with it. And I think there's obviously a lot of the medical stuff that we never find out about. Obviously this week we found out about loads of it because basically everybody's been ill. But a lot of the sort of niggly injury stuff, like who's carrying a sort of hamstring issue that they don't want to push through too far. Shea Charles has played basically every minute this season up until his hamstring goes ping on Saturday. So you've got that's kind of the other side of it, of where you get caught out. So I do have a little bit of sympathy with that. I do think that, I mean, maybe you look at a game and think, well, 15 minutes to go, we're 3-1 down. If I throw caution to the wind and we go and get done 3 times on the break and it's 5 or 6, then I'm actually out of a job tomorrow morning. Whereas at least keep the shape that you've been working on. Maybe, I mean, you get fresh legs on, obviously, and that's what we did on Tuesday night. But frankly, most of them had no impact. There's only so much a manager can do when you put these players on the pitch and they still don't have any tangible difference, make any difference to the way the game's panning out. Jay Robinson did a few nice little things. I think Manning didn't really do much. Trying to think who else came on. It was such a forgettable second half performance after that sort of first 5 minutes where we had those two chances we mentioned. I do just think at some point you just kind of accept, okay, right, we've been beaten here. Let's not do anything silly. Just see it out. Take the criticism we're going to get, and look ahead to going again and putting things right.
Yeah. You talk about managing resources there, Glenn. There's a couple of players that just don't even seem to be able to get into the ground anymore, let alone on the bench or in the team. Aribo in particular. So if we're looking at players being ill and drafting, I mean, for the Blackburn game, drafting in kids from the under-21 rather than sort of established players that maybe have fallen out of favour, is that managing your resources properly?
Well, the Joe Aribo case is a very strange one, and we don't hear anything about it. I don't know if Alfie knows anything about, whether he's been training or whether he's been around or whatever. But it does, on the face of it, seem very weird that we've got a player who's very experienced at playing in the Championship in a position that we're a little bit light in, especially given Flynn's Downs' continual battle with bloody E. coli or whatever it is. So you've got Flynn Downs, you've got a young kid making his way from German football, and you've got Shay Charles who is now injured, so the situation might change. But it does seem very weird to me that Joe Aribo has not been involved. Basically, we're paying him. He's a Southampton player. They probably didn't want him to be. They wanted him to move on in the summer. So unless they're doing something like, maybe Will Steele's been told not to play him. Maybe they're trying to freeze him out so he wants to move in January. I don't know. But there does seem to be an element of cutting off your nose to spite your face.
Even if that was the case, Glenn, you've then got Matsky, who in his last appearance for the club obviously scored from 30 yards. Yes.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Game.
That's weird.
Yeah, it's not just Aribo.
Yeah, I mean, and you got a Dozie as well, who was effective in the Championship last time. And let's face it, I mean, bar Sienza, our wingers are not setting the world on fire, are they? So you kind of do wonder if there's something going on that we don't know about. But it does seem weird that we're promoting kids from the under-18s. I know the Cam Bragg thing was based on geography, whether you believe that or not. I don't know.
I think it might well be true, but even if it's true, it's negligence, isn't it? And I'm not saying it's on Will Steele, it might be on a number of different people. But I mean, for the sake of a couple £100 on a hotel room, why not just bring Matsky and Aribo? It doesn't make any sense to me.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't make any sense. And the fact that he played without a shirt number, and at the end of the day, it's a player with a shirt on, but it makes us look very, very tin pot.
Yeah, it's amateur, and then you get beaten by the bottom of the league because you deserve it.
Amateur hour, and then and in the context of the absolute crap, especially in that second half, it's just awful. But managing the resources is difficult. I went on a rant last week or a couple of weeks ago about Ross Stewart, where they tried to play him too much, and he's got injured, and that this kind of feeds into Steve's point. Maybe they've had a look at that, had a good old review of what they're doing, and maybe that's why that's the only reason I can think of. Well, we saw some of the strangeness with substitutions yesterday, so maybe they are a little bit more conscious about overloading players. But if they were more conscious of it as a result of Ross Stewart, now with Shay Charles going down, that's two of our most important players who've both got injured, possibly through overplaying. So it's a difficult one.
We're already sort of straying into the conversation about yesterday's game. Anything else on the Bristol City game before we move on?
I've just got one thing, if you indulge me a second. It was
Sure.
Gerhard Struber's, I think I pronounced that right, his comments after the game.
Yeah.
And he was asked about basically by the difference between Bundesliga 2 and the Championship. And to cut a long story short, he basically said the Championship's a much better league, much stronger, physically tougher, all that sort of thing. And I think this was in context of the players we've signed from Bundesliga 2 and how it was basically, I think, we all knew this already. It was very, very, it was a flight of fancy to basically expect Yander, Kouaji, Downs to come in from that level of football and be immediately effective. And all three of them, apart from, two of them have looked like they might be promising in the future. And the other one has really, really struggled. So you would have thought Johannes Spors would have known that when he brought the players in, but maybe he underestimated the strength of the Championship. He obviously knew the standard of Bundesliga 2, but maybe he underestimated the strength of the Championship and what was needed, in the same way that we underestimated what you needed in the Premier League last year.
Yep.
So I just thought it was an interesting point that an experienced manager who'd obviously managed there very recently, including managing one of the players that we've bought, is saying that straight after the game.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's draw a line under Bristol City, and 4 days later we swapped the southwest for the northwest for the game against Blackburn yesterday, of course, and another game that, so-called on paper, we could have been confident that it was perhaps one we could and should win. And of course, the great stat, Rovers had not won at Ewood Park since April. So what's going to happen? Well, of course, the result was poor, the performance possibly worse. But could this game actually end up being remembered for possibly the worst set of substitutions we've seen? And there's a low benchmark. So just to summarise before we start, then 4 changes. Yander and Downs, you've already mentioned, ruled out that morning. So Bragg joined up with the squad from Leicester, forgot to bring his shirt. Zaz, Kouaji and Manning in. First 3 minutes, the second half, McCarthy kept us in the game. Armstrong had plenty of those horrific one-on-ones that we all know him for, and ended up with nearly 2,500 fans chanting, you're getting sacked in the morning. So what an absolute poor show, and then add a red card with a few minutes left to go. So where do we want to start with this? Steve, were you at the game or did you get to watch it?
I gave it a miss. I took a mythical trip to Europe to watch the game. I got Adam and Joe's dulcet tones for the afternoon, which was probably better than the BBC Lancashire equivalent, or at least I hope so. But yeah, it was. I mean, again, first half we were kind of fine. Obviously, got the goal. About half an hour in or so, but we'd missed a couple of good opportunities early on. But then it started a really open game, but it was just such low quality of everything. Obviously, not being there, you don't quite get a feel for the conditions. But one thing that does kind of set it up is the fact that they hit the bar direct from a corner 3 minutes in. You think, oh, okay, there's a wind, and that kind of seemed to be. You would think that would be a justification for teams to try and get the ball down and play a passing game, but no. Both teams decided that they were going to try and launch it into the sky and see what happened. And what resulted was a terrible game of football. Probably the only thing that was worse was the fussy and sort of bitty refereeing of our friend Bobby Madley. And yeah, it was just nothing really happened up until the point where we get a little bit of finally actually something breaks our way. Sienza finds himself one-on-one, does a sort of little drag over, and then to sit the keeper down and sticks it in the bottom corner. You think,
good goal, great goal.
Finally, a bit of quality. That's what we've been really lacking. And I mean, we spoke about Bristol City on Tuesday, that like within 3 minutes we'd contrived to basically give the lead away to their first shot, and kind of more or less the same thing almost happened with McCarthy having to make a half decent save. About 2 minutes after from distance, palmed it wide. Looked like he might have slipped a little bit as he was kind of getting his feet set. So he did pretty well to turn it past the post, really. But yeah, it was one of those games that you felt was crying out for, as long if we get the second goal, then we get 3 or 4 here, because the game will just open up and they won't have a clue what to do once they're 2-0 down. The fans
how many times have we said
and it wasn't for the lack of having the chances. Although obviously, as you say, Blackburn had 2 or 3 half decent opportunities right at the start of the second half. But once we got a little bit of a grip of ourselves and kind of just got our heads back in the game, really, we were able to carve through them on the break 3 or 4 times. Armstrong obviously missed those 2 one-on-ones. The first one, he tries to do a carbon copy of what he did on Tuesday, but he was a good 7 or 8 yards further out, so it just wasn't a viable option. He should have just hit it early. The second one, on replay, keeper's got a hand on it and got a leg on it, and it's rebounded off the post. But again, he's taken so long; he's allowed the keeper to narrow that angle. You give the keeper an opportunity to make the save there. I think one of those two, if not both, maybe take the shot early, because it's the sort of thing that he made his name on, was scoring goals in the Championship by not giving the defenders and keeper time to set themselves, because he'd always take the shot first time.
Or giving himself time to think himself into the completely wrong finish. Yeah,
maybe. And yeah, I mean, he's obviously done a lot of second guessing himself in the last 4 years or so. And yeah, that's kind of probably the sign of a player that probably, as you say, had too much time and just didn't ever come close to picking the right.
He doesn't
option.
lack confidence, though, Steve. I spoke to
No,
him
he doesn't.
Monday.
This is the thing.
Yeah, I spoke to him Monday before the game, and he was particularly bullish. You
can see in the way that he played, like his all round game yesterday was fine. I thought he was involved a lot in the first half, linking up with Roersleff. Roersleff, that was his best attacking performance by some distance so far. He was getting forward a lot and really getting involved. But yeah, once we then made that, obviously Archer got injured first, didn't he? I think, and we brought Fraser on, which, I mean, kind of okay, fine, whatever. You can have opinions on whether Armstrong through the middle was a bad move or not, but actually the second of his one-on-ones was after that sub.
It gave him the chance to miss from a different angle, I guess.
Yeah. But yeah, getting Fraser on to play down the right, no particular issues with that. That shouldn't have affected us too much. But then you come to the substitution to kind of sort of eclipse all substitutions. Just extraordinary. I mean, look at every single composite part of that substitution, right? You're taking off the one player in your team who has looked the most creative. When you're 1-0 up and you're getting loads of opportunities on the counter attack to increase that lead. 2, you've got club captain who's been pilloried from left, right, and centre, including from us at times. Who's not played a minute of football for 5-6 weeks now, and you're bringing him on to play in central midfield, a position he's not played for. If you're being generous, he probably played 2 or 3 games vaguely there in the Championship last time, and then of course you then compound it with Shay Charles getting injured. Probably 5 minutes after that, if that. And yeah, it's just the whole perception of how it looks when you're 1-0 up away against a team who haven't won at home all season, would more or less be bottom of the league if Sheffield Wednesday weren't a complete basket case. And even their substitutions that they made literally in the same stoppage, their manager got pilloried for as well. He got, you don't know what you're doing, from the home fans for the substitutions he
It was
made.
a remarkable scene. It really was.
Just an extraordinary passage of not even play. It was just staggering from both sides, and yet Ishmael's the guy that ends up smelling the roses at the end of it. It's absolutely mental.
As would Jack Stevens have been if he'd nodded a header in the last 5.
I think with that, even if Will still thinks that, and I don't get me wrong, the midfield needed some bolstering. All right, at that time the game was opening up. Even if he thought that was the right change, I just think sometimes you've got to manage for yourself, and I just think that change looks mental. Just give yourself a chance. Give yourself a chance. If you're going to do that, and this might be wrong because of all the reasons why Will still said after the game that Leo couldn't play the full 90. For all the reasons why Steve and Glen have already said about player loads and all this sort of thing. And actually, Finn Azaz, who they left on the pitch, who had been dreadful up until that point, actually then played a couple of good passes in behind that were the best chance of the rest of the game. But in that moment, if you have to bring Stevens on and play him in the field, just bring Finn Azaz off and leave Leo on. Just give yourself a chance with the fans because, I tweeted last night when I got home after the 4-hour drive back from Blackburn that I couldn't get the image out of my head because I was directly behind the dugout, a long way away, but completely straight onto it. And I could see Jack Stevens looking over to the away end as they're booing him coming on. And then people will say they're booing Leo coming off, they're not booing Jack coming on, but that's irrelevant. That's semantics. The bloke's coming on and these fans are booing him. And I could just see him looking at the away and I just thought, there's no way this ends well. It's an awful scene. I don't blame the fans.
It was the same on Tuesday when Downs came on.
Yeah, I don't blame the fans for booing, but that's not my point. The fans are frustrated because the club's a basket case. But you just see there the scene. I couldn't get out of my head just to him looking over and and it was an absolute fucking disaster.
So what does Will still think is going to happen with that? So Jack Stevens is at the moment his 5th choice centre back, right? He's 5th in the pecking order out of 5. And considering how shit the other 4 are, he's the 5th choice out of 5. And he thinks it's a good idea to put him on in a position where he doesn't play. He hasn't played for 6 weeks. And as Steve said, look at all the composite parts of that substitution. And another thing is, if he was worried about Azaz running out of legs in the centre of the midfield, just take Azaz off. Yeah. Just do a straight swap. He never seems to make a substitution without moving two players around.
True.
Yeah,
like when he brought Ryan Fraser on, he moves Adam Armstrong in field, which makes the attack worse.
So Glenn, what is the right substitution there then? So he's taking Sienza off because he's advised that he can't do 90 minutes. So we can't argue with that. We don't see the stats. We don't know. But what's the
chances are the only way we were going to win that game was to score a second goal. And by taking Sienza off, you're basically sending a message to Blackburn: we ain't attacking anymore. We are now trying to hold on to this with 20 minutes to go. We had Damien Downs, great, on the bench. We also had the youngster Nick Oyakunle, who we promoted onto the bench. To be honest, I would have chucked him on for 20 minutes. What's the worst that could have happened?
He couldn't have played any worse than Archer. He could have brought him on then, honestly.
No, just sent him out there and just say, go and get me a goal. Go and get me a winning goal. Don't worry about defending or anything like that. You just stay out there, occupy the defenders, go and get me a goal if you can. Just do your best. But, I mean, I thought bringing Fraser on was a bottle job. He didn't do anything. He's gone downhill from where he was at the start of the season.
Yep.
He started relatively well. He's not beating players. He's not getting crosses in. He's not having shots on goal. He's not doing anything. So it just made it so blunt. I just couldn't get over the fact that, I mean, if there's any Blackburn fans listening to this, they're going to accuse me of sour grapes here, and that's probably fair enough. I can't remember losing to a team as bad as they are. They were terrible. And the right back who scored the goal, I mean, Jesus, he's awful.
By the way, both of their first goals for the club, obviously.
Yep.
Yeah, of course. That's part of the script, right?
Just awful.
The striker is Idaho Johnson's son, isn't
Correct.
it?
Yes.
Yeah. But I mean, but that substitution, it just what it said. Sienza and Shea Charles really are the only two players that we had in that game that were above mediocre. Everyone else was mediocre or crap.
Yeah.
And you've taken off the one player who was giving the away fans something to hang on to. This is our best player. He's played 2.5 games and suddenly he's our best player. That's how bad it's been. He's our best player. He's the one signing that is giving everybody a little bit of hope that he, you know, I mean, you take him off and you do a substitution that 99% of people were just looking at going, what is that? Now, yeah, I mean, he didn't look injured. He didn't look like he wanted to come off.
No.
You know, I don't get it. And again, like the Bristol City game, the last 20 minutes were just atrocious. Just atrocious. What formation did we have in the end? When he made the 3 subs at the end.
Oh, there was no formation. It was
none at all. No one knew where they were. No one knew where they were supposed to be. And we only got onto the the team he picked, bringing Josh Quasi back. Didn't understand that. Harwood-Bellis wasn't any worse than anyone else against Bristol City, but he gets dropped. Josh Quasi comes in to do his selection of air shots and
he nearly gave their guy a goal from basically tackling Ronnie Edwards and putting their guy clean through. Fortunately, they're was it Hashitoshi?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, he put the one-on-one even further away than any of Armstrong's ones.
Well, it's only fair.
Well, we should do a couple of mitigating factors as well, right? So, goalkeeping for the first goal, and also Kouachi just sort of kicking the air and not kicking the air and just
he dummied it.
Yeah,
he dummied his own goalkeeper.
And we were having a little chat, Glenn, last night, and you said maybe the goalkeeper's called for that, but there's no chance that McCarthy wants that. No, so get rid of it. Get rid of it. So he's just to make me not sound like an idiot. What I actually said was Quasi acted like McCarthy had called for it. Yeah.
And there's no way McCarthy would have called for it because it was curling in towards the goal. There's no way McCarthy would have called for it. So Quasi goes for it and then doesn't, and that's him up.
The only way that goal looks acceptable is if it takes a deflection on the way in, right?
Yeah,
to go in as it did,
it's
just clean.
So that's goal number one.
If it ends up just inside the far post, you say, well, look, it's a dangerous cross, and everyone's missed it, and the keeper's expecting someone to get a touch on it, but
it's not. It's all the way into the middle of the goal.
Right in the middle, yeah.
Goal number one is a shambles. Goal number two is one of those goals. It hits obviously Cam Bragg, who it's not Cam Bragg's fault. He actually did quite well. He shouldn't be on the pitch. That is a result of negligence of the management team, whether that's the manager or the CEO or the director of football, whoever it is. So that's crap. Goal number two is crap as well. Edwards had a goal ruled out. He was onside. So we could have gone 2 goals up. He scored an onside goal that was ruled out by the linesman. That should have counted. So there's a couple of different bits there. But ultimately, we've talked all season about how Saints have been unlucky. XG, they've smashed teams, they've dominated teams. I mean, go look at the XG. Blackburn Rovers, one of the worst teams in the league, absolutely battered Saints on stats by the end. And obviously, yes, that's a result of the total and utter collapse. But they could have scored 6. So it's not only Saints that missed chances yesterday. And I think that's why a lot of people left feeling even more annoyed than they might usually.
Well, of course, we heard, as I mentioned in my summary of the game, that we heard our own fans singing "You're getting sacked" in the morning. I've not heard that since I was in the away end at Brentford in the Premier League with Russell Martin. Is that a new low since the Russell Martin point, or is it just it's fine if we win next week?
I think every week seems to be a new low, doesn't it? Right. So I think I build Bristol City as a new low. I think probably build Hull City as a new low, and this one, it's a new low again. It's definitely a new low for Will Steele. I don't know if they're going to change the manager now. I could well be wrong because at the end of the day, it's Dragan Solak's money. And if he decides he's had enough, then I'm sure he's got every power to make that decision. But I don't expect the manager to change now. I'd expect to be another game, another 2 games, another 3 games, whatever it is. But it's hard for him to get back from this point now because I imagine that through a lot of factors which are not his fault, and for a couple which are, he's lost a lot of the fan base now. You're even reading the comments in our podcast today. So if they don't play well against Preston next weekend at home, if they, God forbid, go behind, it's going to be a ropey place. But it wasn't just the sacked in the morning chance. It was sack the board. It was also you're not fit to wear the shirt. So all 3 of the main culprits got their fair share of the blame. The manager Will Steele, the board, whether that's Dragan himself, whether that's Johannes Spores, whoever it is, and obviously the players who a lot of them are not fit to wear the shirt.
The sack the board chant is a bit pointless because they're not going to sack themselves, right?
Well, also they have sacked the board a couple of times.
Well, there's been enough change, that's for sure, and we'll come on to another senior position that might be under some change shortly before the end of the podcast. But going back to your point about Preston on Saturday, and we'll preview that properly in a minute. We've got, I think, Preston, QPR, and Sheffield Wednesday. I'll do my little air quotes thing. All winnable games on paper, right? Maybe QPR harder than the others, but and Preston are 7th in the league, not by accident. Then there's the manager's jeopardy time, perhaps around an international break again. Then I think the November break. So is it a case of perhaps waiting and seeing what happens after those 3 games?
I would have said so. Yeah, I would have said so. I mean, it can't carry on. There are lots of mitigating factors, mainly around the players being crap, having no will to win, either individually or collectively. There's a lot of that, but the bottom line is it's always the manager who loses his job, and that is what will happen if we end up probably sinking into the relegation zone, which is looks like where it's heading at the moment. I'm still more in on the players than Will still.
Absolutely,
to be honest. On paper, there's more ability in this squad than most of the teams we're playing against. I reckon our training sessions are probably higher quality. Better team on paper, probably cost more in fees and wages than most. But when it comes to playing,
our attackers get to play against our defenders. That's the problem.
Yeah, that's true. But when it comes to playing as a team, doing the hard yards, will to win, getting the job done, we are shit. We are shit, and that's why teams that have got less able players than we've got, like Blackburn, can turn us over because we have no idea how to win games. That's mostly on the players, but. There is a worrying pattern of managers sussing us out. Opposition managers now seem to be managing better second halves than Will still does. And that is something he really has got to look at. But then, he's always undermined at every turn by players. I mean, Wellington being a twat yesterday. I know that ultimately didn't help, but it means we got to keep Ryan Manning in the team for the last few weeks, few weeks. And he's been absolute dog shit the last 3 or 4 weeks. It's like he doesn't care. He could be an half-decent player if he concentrated on playing football instead of trying to wind everybody up and dive around. And, he's just drives me nuts. He's another one he started the season quite well and it's just progressively got worse. And, Will still's got a lot to deal with. And I reckon if he could start with a clean sheet of paper, there wouldn't be many of these players who want to keep.
Well, he said that, Glenn. I mean, he said as much. I mean, in a couple of interviews now, he has said when asked about the players, he then uses sort of nondescript, vague terms. Oh, yeah, there's a lot of things we need to change here, a lot of things we need to move on, a lot of things we weren't able to move on this summer. And it's like, what things are they? Are they the players that we've just asked you about? I'm pretty sure they are. There's a lot of players that clearly doesn't want to be here.
But we were all roundedly kind of quite happy with the it's a relative term for a Southampton fan, I guess, but relatively happy with the business that we did in the window.
Well, I think what we said on this podcast was we're going to hold off judging the window because we've made this mistake before, where we've said it's a good window and it turns out to be utter garbage. And I think we're not at that stage just yet, but it's certainly not as it's not hit the ground running. But
the point I was going to make was that obviously some of those players must be his players or the players that he thought he needed in the team to play the way that he wants to play. So you guys mentioning about it's the players' fault.
I'm not sure how much the manager has to do with which players arrive these days. Okay. There's a reason why managers get replaced more often than they used to 20, 30, 40 years ago even, is that the higher ups decide what players are there and they want the manager to get the most out of those. It's not, I don't think the manager is always responsible. And obviously you see one or two where they've signed a player who used to play for them. Yeah. Things like that. But yeah, in the main, but I mean, Will Still's got to look at himself. I mean, the other thing I thought about that substitution, I forgot to mention earlier, is that we were winning when he did that. We were winning. So there was no need, there was no need to throw it all up in the air like he did by moving all these players around. Yeah. So, I mean, he does say he looks at himself, and I I believe that, and that's what he's accusing the players of not doing. But I don't think many of these players have actually got it in them to actually look at themselves and say, that was my fault. I should be doing better than that. Some of them talk a good game, but
yeah, they'll say it as a sound bite, and they say it's down to us.
The ones that were still here, the ones that were here that are still here now, the ones that were here 2 years ago. I mean, they were such streaky players. When everything was kind of coming up, smelling of roses for them, they were absolutely loving it and couldn't wait to play another game and this, that, and the other. As soon as there was a slight bit of adversity and we lost a game, we would go on a run,
lose 4
of being absolute dog shit for weeks, and it would look like none of them had ever seen each other before, never knew how to kick a football. And so I just think that those players that have been there the whole time, they're just mentally broken. There's just nothing in there for them to kind of eke out anymore. They've kind of had they were obviously all around last season, and I mean that's no fun for anybody. And ultimately they were thrown to the wolves with the sort of recruitment that we put in. It's obviously a facile sort of comparison, but look at what Sunderland are doing. 17 points already. They're 5 points clear of what we got over the whole season, and it's fucking end of October.
Well, not only that, Burnley and Leeds are about a point off what we got the whole season as well.
Yeah.
All of them are up there.
Sunderland have had a very kind fixture list to start the season, but you've still got to sign these players that are going to do the business, and we just haven't done that for years really. Sport Republic haven't had a transfer window where they've even nailed 80%, I would say. And it's just you just kind of look at it and think, well, the only thing that's not been changed is, I say that the only person that's not been changed, obviously the sporting director is continually changing and seems like it might change again. The guy who appoints him seems to be the and obviously the owner seems to be the only guys that haven't changed at this point. It's time for Phil Parsons to stick his head above the parapet. I think he's one. Him and it seems like Johannes Spors doesn't fancy or rather the club don't fancy him having to give an interview. It's like, well, sorry, but it's kind of your job. To communicate with people outside and just kind of circling the wagons and hoping that everything will pass over doesn't really wash when you've won 4 games out of the last 50.
Yeah. There's calls, of course, for a change of ownership, but that's something that's going to come when it's the right time for someone to sell, right? And you don't think that where we are now is the right
obviously
time.
Spoke to Dragan in June, and one of the things he said was that if he ever feels that he is now the wrong person for the club, and if he's not helping the club, then he will sell. Obviously, easy thing to say.
Yes.
I also think that on that perspective, if I was Dragan, I would look at the fact that I've been taken for a ride by people who have failed to run the club for me. I've pissed millions up the wall on players who are crap. I've pissed millions up the wall on investments of which, to be fair to him, he won't see the return of. And I'm referring to, the Dell, level 1, all the sort of off-pitch stuff that are important ventures for the club, but they're long-term things. And, if he was to sell soon, he wouldn't see the return of that back. And he might just think, well, I don't really want to be taken for a ride for any more of my money. So I guess we'll see where it ends up. Personally, I don't lay a particular large amount of blame at Dragan's door because, there's a lot of owners in this league who don't spend any money.
Yeah, no, I tend to agree.
He has provided the money. He has provided the interest from him personally, but he's been mugged off by the people that he's employed to do it, unfortunately, and it's happened again.
But if you have a look at the forum since Tuesday after the Bristol game, certainly yesterday, even on our comments tonight, hundreds of names for new managers, and we haven't seen that obviously for quite a while.
Yeah, let's hope that these players don't decide they don't fancy the new manager after 4 games as well.
Mm-hmm. Yep. All right. Well, anything else on Blackburn, or do you think we've wrung every inch of joy out of that already? Do you think?
Well, Sienza's a good player. Well, that's a good signing.
Happy with him.
Steve mentioned the quality for the ball roll and the finish. I mean, the finish alone, but why is he even bothered ball rolling it there? How does he have the confidence to do that? And it's a great decision. It's such a nice touch. It sells the keeper and it makes it easier for him to finish. And that's exactly the sort of composure.
It opened up that far post, didn't it?
And absolutely.
That's what Armstrong didn't have on for the two chances when he went through, because he'd not been able to kind of commit the keeper one way or the other. He had to then take the shot, and it was like, well, I'm hitting it straight at the goalkeeper here. There's no space for me to get through.
Do you remember a goal Dusan Tadic scored at West Ham? First time we played there, where the ball got played into him, and it was just a little similar, but a little body swerve.
Just a step over,
just sat the goalkeeper down and just rolled it into the net. It's just like, that's what a quality player does.
Yeah, I thought the slow-mo of it was beautiful. They had a really nice slow-mo of it with him just
give yourself that little bit of time to do something with the goalkeeper, just to open it out a little bit more, so you can roll it into the net. That's what good players do, and that's what separates good players from, bless him, players like Adam Armstrong who either belt it straight at a defender or belt it at the goalkeeper. Lovely goal against Bristol City, but as Steve said, totally the wrong decision to try that again at Blackburn when there were two defenders on the line and the ball had to travel a lot further. So,
just on Sienza as well, he put up a sort of a Facebook apology for the performances and whatnot, and there was quite an impassioned moment in front of the away end at full time. Obviously, Jack Stevens made an effort to go over and applaud the away fans.
Jack Stevens' effort to go over there was about as much of an effort as his kind of 25 minutes on.
I think that's the most he'd moved, right?
You should see the effort of the rest of the fuckers then, who didn't get even.
Oh yeah, but I mean, I'm not being funny, but it's if you're gonna go over there and kind of offer some kind of half-assed apology, then just don't bother. Just walk straight down the tunnel.
Absolutely right. I couldn't agree with you more.
I agree. My point was that Leo Sienza then went all the way up.
All the way up
to the way in, and he was sort of giving it a bit of this, trying to get people back on side. Which he's the one player that could do that. But I think he probably heard a few words that he hadn't heard before as well in that moment.
Might have been a bit easier for him to go and do it, being the best player on the pitch,
definitely,
and still the fans' favourite, right? So, all right. Well, look, we'll come on to team selection in a minute, because next up it's Saints back at St Mary's to face Preston on Saturday. Preston had a big win for them on Friday night, televised game. They sit 7th, and they got a win, as I say, on Friday after 2 straight defeats. To spare us any more agony, should we just go straight to the score prediction? But actually, I'm interested. Do any of us now know what our best 11 is?
Well, it's not our best 11. I think I know what the 11 might look
11.
Like. Yeah, but it's certainly not the best. It's not the best in the bottom 3 of the Championship, probably.
So, who are the players that can't play? So, Wellington's out for sure. We're not going to appeal that. We're not going to appeal that red card, are we?
Well, I don't know, because
it's a blatant red card. Well, it's a harsh red.
But the thing is, the referee has sent him off for elbowing him in the head, and he clearly hasn't elbowed him in the head. He's jumped and turned at a weird angle, and he's made contact with him halfway down his back. So, I mean, there's an argument that you could get that off for that's not really violent conduct, really. But at the same time, I kind of also think, well, it was just such a stupid thing to do anyway. Just have 3 games off.
I think he's going to struggle. I think he's going to struggle on the intent, because it looked like he was going in with his elbow. And he didn't catch him, and the player made a meal of it. But I mean, I hate Bobby Madley. I think he's a crap referee, but I actually don't have a problem whatsoever with him giving a red card for that on one viewing. I don't think it would be overturned if we had VAR.
No,
because of the way he's gone flying in. So, it was idiotic.
Wellington definitely out. Then let's say Charles obviously looks like hamstring. So
Flynn Downs will be ill.
Flynn Downs will be ill. There's the bug. There's the illness bug that isn't the same.
I'm sorry. Let's talk about Flynn Downs very briefly before we move on. I mean, this next 35 seconds might be extremely harsh to Flynn Downs, and he might well be in bed, ridden with illness every single time. But I do think that fans are getting a little bit frustrated. If he is this unwell every time, then I apologise. But I just feel like we've had so many players pull out with illness this year, and people are going to start asking questions. They're going to start asking questions about whether they really could be. I mean, we asked Will Steele, did Caspiander and Flynn Downs tell you they couldn't play, or did you rule them that they couldn't play? And I think he sort of said, well, they told me it would then be unfair to put them on the pitch, and they both might well be unwell. But I don't know, with Flynn Downs, we know he has this sort of like this intestinal weakness, whatever, because of the E. coli, and it's a gutting for him, and it's a shame for him. But he's also in the past forced his way out of Ipswich. He's sort of thrown his toys out the pram in January this year when Ipswich came back in for him. There are going to be sceptical fans, and I'm not saying this, but there are going to be sceptical fans who think, well, actually, maybe he's just phoning it in. If they were top of the league, would he be available? Maybe that's really harsh on him. But either way, it's not helping the team right now. And the best part of ability is availability, surely, and he's never available.
If we were top of the league, he might not get in the team. So that's another thing. But so I don't know who starts on Saturday. So the first name on the team sheet, presumably Sienza, yeah.
Yeah,
I think so. And I mean, Armstrong will play because he's the only guy that's likely to stick the ball in the net. At least if you give him 6 chances, he might get 1 or 2. And I mean, Charles unavailable. Downs, Yander, we assume is probably going to be okay again. So I mean, the Downs Yander 2 doesn't look awful.
That sounds all right.
No,
it sounds fine to me. What do you do at the back? I mean, Roslev was good. As I say, I thought he was absolutely fine. Given that he's not played again for a few weeks, he slotted in quite well. I thought, especially first half. So him and Manning on either side. Do you go to a 4?
I think if Will still wants to save his job, whether he thinks it works or not, he has to. If he wants to save that,
and then because then you've got to get. Essentially, you've got to try and get all of the players that he wanted into the team. So you've got to get Fellows into the team. You've got to probably get Azaz into the team. Can we actually fit all of those in? I can't count. Possibly.
You could have 4-2-3-1. You could have Fellows, Azaz, Sienza, Armstrong up front. I mean, Armstrong up front is not great, but that's the way you can get 4 of them into a team if you play with the back.
Because presumably Archer's shin is presumably an issue now as well.
I thought you were going to say Archer's shit then. But
it's probably been said before.
But that was what he went off for, wasn't it? It was a shin injury, I think. With contact from
he was hobbling as he went off, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean that looked a genuine injury. He went in, the guy cleaned the ball out. It was a perfectly fair challenge, but he has caught him on the way through.
Yeah, newsflash: players always limp off if they get substituted before the hour mark.
Yeah,
always limp off.
Yeah.
So we've got what sounds like a half decent 11 on paper there. You've got McCarthy in goal, Roslev at right back. Take your pick with the centre halves. Ryan Manning at left back, Yander, Downs, Fellows, Azaz, Sienza, Armstrong.
Let's talk about the centre backs. It's got to be Nathan Wood and someone, I think.
Well, he's going to start Stevens now, isn't he?
Even though Nathan, I mean, I'd start Nathan Wood and Harwood-Bellis personally, but that's the closest to a.
I mean, it's Wood, and you could genuinely do a Tom Bowler,
you could.
I mean, the club must still have that big glass bowl that we drew the balls out with the sponsorship. Let's literally put those centre backs in and draw one out, and that person plays.
It
really does it?
Surely it's a new game they could put in level 1. Pick the team for Saturday using throwing golf balls.
It's like
balls at a wall or something.
It's like the old Crystal Dome where you've got the bits, the gold and silver bits of paper flapping around in the air conditioning. You got to grab them and hope that when you stuff them in the envelope, it makes a full 11.
Yeah, very good. What about Stevens? He's brought Stevens on in that game, so he's obviously match fit.
Can I actually say one more weird thing? Actually, why? Don't get me wrong. I think Cam Bragg is a brilliant player for Academy. I like Cam Bragg. He's had a tough time on loan, but why did Cam Bragg come up to the game rather than Moses Cisse?
Good point.
Who played for the 21s?
Yeah, and has actually played first team games this season.
Well, that to me just seems completely bizarre. But
Moses he's been pushed forward a little bit, hasn't he? He's playing more as a number 10 now.
Yeah, I guess maybe that's true. But I think he did play. I think he did play midfield for 21s that day, but that might be true. That is a fair point.
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry, Jack Stevens.
No one's answering my question about Jack Stevens. You're all ignoring me, which is not nice for the new guy, right?
As the official sponsor, we have to.
Yeah, it's a bit of a conflict of interest.
Yeah, that glass bowl. That worked well,
Would
right?
we start at Jack Stevens? Is that the question?
Let's just say he didn't do very much in yesterday's game to warrant getting picked for next week, even though he was thrown to the wolves a little bit.
Yeah, you give him a little bit of a pass because he's playing in the position that isn't his position, and
correct.
As you say, he's not played for 5-6 weeks when he wasn't playing particularly well anyway, and you're now throwing him into this chaotic situation where the midfield is collapsing around him, and you're asking him to kind of drag everything through, you've just thrown a proper hospital pass there by the manager, unfortunately. But in terms of whether he's the one picked, I mean, if you value kind of a little bit of organisation at the back, then okay, vocally he's one of the better ones we've got. But he's got to be able to organise his own game, and that has ultimately always been his problem. He's good at organising others, and that's why we've often played with a 5.
Yeah,
because you can then get away with having 3 centre-backs, because if 2 of them are in the positions they should be, then the third one can just be kind of there mopping up and pointing and looking sort of looking like a leader. But in a 4, both centre-backs are going to have to be busy, and you can be up against that lunatic Amo-Ameyaw on Saturday.
He's been a sub recently, so
was he?
He'll come on at some point.
Yeah, but it's I mean, Preston are a decent side. Their record speaks for itself. They're in 7th. But it's their home record that is the key for them. They've beaten Ipswich, they've beaten Leicester, and they've beaten Sheffield United at Deepdale. Away from home, they've not done very much at all. They lost at Fratton Park. Where else have they been? They won at Derby, but then they drew at Hull and lost at West Brom. So, yeah, away from home, they're nowhere near as strong as they are at home, as you would expect most teams to be. So, kind of pretty much a sort of middle of the road championship side, I guess.
But they're playing us.
Yeah.
So their away record could be about to get a little bit better, possibly. If we go one down early, what's the atmosphere like?
It won't be great.
Well, yeah. I'm intrigued to see how many people are in the building in the first place, because I think every single home game this season, bar the derby, obviously, has progressively dropped in attendance, and I imagine that'll be the same again. And yeah, if they go 1 down again, it'll be a nightmare for everybody. And then you ask the question of, can these players produce in that kind of environment? The answer we've been routinely told is no. Can the manager change that around in the second half? He's done it a couple of times this season, but not enough. So yeah, I think if they go 1-0 down, it could be a very tricky place to play.
Actually, probably the worst option is to go 1-0 up. Possibly, because
if you get 1-0 up in the 97th minute, then you say that you at least give yourself half a chance.
Might get a draw.
Well, it was like that Everton game last season, wasn't it? Obviously the one home league game we won all season. Go 1-0 up on the 86th minute, and that was almost still not enough because they equalised and had it ruled out by VAR.
Yeah,
just ridiculous. I mean, we've got to do something about this home record. And it's not incumbent on a particular manager, because they've all suffered. Russell Martin, Ivan Juric, Simon Rusk, and now Will Still. Between them, what we got? 2 home wins.
Yeah.
Since basically going back to the start of last season.
Russell Martin's the only manager appointed by Sport Republic who's won more than 2 league games.
Yeah,
that is an incredible.
Think about that as a stat.
That is an incredible stat, isn't it?
Remarkable. Bear in mind, they bought the club in January 2022.
Yeah.
But Sellers won 2, didn't he?
Yeah, 1, 2.
Yeah, so
more than two. Yeah.
They've all won
Although
2.
I mean, you could argue that Chelsea game wasn't him because he was caretaker then rather than actually.
I think
appointed.
he would argue with that as well.
Oh, I'm sure
the
he
other
would.
way, but yeah.
But
No, I think it's a fair point that ultimately it's a double-edged sword, isn't it? Because fans are absolutely right to be annoyed at this point, and they're sick and tired of being told that we need to get behind the team. They want to be given a team to get behind at this point. But it is a catch-22 because it is going to be hard for the players now under this pressure. They don't deserve anything better, but it's going to be hard for them to produce. And that's why it's worrying, I think. But I still think there's at the end of the day that there is quality in this squad, and they should, on paper, be able to get a result. But we just need to see if they can do it.
All right. Well, talking about quality in the squad, let's go on to the sheer comedy that was this week's score predictions. So we'll start back at Bristol. So, Steve, you had us down for a 1-0 win. Glen, you had us down for a 1-0 win.
Right for 3 minutes.
Yeah, Alfie 1-1 and Martin, when he was here, had us down as a 1-0 defeat. So I think he gets a point or so for picking the right result, but not the right score.
I don't like this reviewing our crap predictions.
Sorry, I'm just following instructions, right? So let's do the same with Blackburn, right? Steve had us as a 3-1 win. Yep. Glen as a 2-0 win. Alfie as a 1-0 win. Martin had us 0-0. We had
record then.
Yeah, well done. For Bristol City, 128 predictions we had in for that game. 31 of you got the correct results, but nobody got the correct score. So 31 of you went for the loss. Blackburn, same sort of numbers, 120 predictions, but only 14 predicted the loss there. But we did get 9 out of those 14 who got the correct scores, which is quite impressive there. So I asked the question more in hope than expectation, as the saying goes. So Alfie, start with you. Looking at the Preston game then, we already know Preston 7th in the league, quite a distance between us and them, but not so good as we've heard from Steve on their away form. So Alfie, what does that tell you?
Yeah, I think when you think of Preston as well, and this might be just my bias showing, but I always think of sort of low scoring affairs. But there's actually been quite a lot of goals in their games. So I will, on that basis, go for what am I going to go for? I'll go for a 2-1 win.
A 2-1 win to Alfie. Glen?
Preston, I find them quite interesting this season because they've gone down the lone player route. They've got 4 players on loan from Premier League clubs. Daniel Jefferson, Bournemouth, Harrison Armstrong, Everton, Alfie Devine, Spurs, Lewis Dobbin, Villa. And if you read a bit about Preston fans and what they've said about them, those 4 have totally transformed their side from what it was last year. It was an interesting discussion we had because obviously in the Championship, we went down the lone player route and got quite a few in, including some that we ultimately signed. So it'd be interesting to see how Preston go. And if they do manage to get promoted, they'll then be in the same issue that we were in, where you've either got to sign them or replace them. And it's but that's the route they've decided to go down. And
they'll definitely take that position as well. I mean, if they can somehow get promoted, they'll be in dreamland. So
they've made a good start. And as Alfie says, I'm sure they take that. They tend to play 3 at the back as well, so they'll clearly do it better than we do. So it'll be interesting to see how we line up, whether we can force their fullbacks back to make them a back 5 like Bristol City did against us. That'll be interesting. But
that's a very considered build-up to a score prediction.
Will the game be interesting? Probably not. I've gone with optimism. I think I've predicted something like 8 wins out of 12 this year, and obviously that hasn't happened. So
plenty of time.
I'll go for a 1-1 draw and another depressing afternoon.
Yeah. Okay, Steve.
Yeah, I mean, Saturday just kind of sapped everything out of everybody.
Totally.
It's weird because not like these days I can kind of I kind of feel like I can compartmentalize like the frustration and stuff, and like this hour that we sit together every Sunday evening is
therapy.
kind of almost my kind of therapy session. I flick the button on the wall, and the door's sealed for the next hour. But yesterday I was in a real stinking mood for the entirety of the evening, and I apologise to the missus for it. But it was. Yeah, it just felt like it felt different yesterday compared to any of the others. Certainly this season, but even most of the ones last year. It's like, well, we're nowhere near as good as these teams that we're playing, so yeah, we're going to lose. But yeah, yesterday just felt like such a kick in the teeth, just in terms of the way it all collapsed. And yeah, I do wonder whether he's going to be able to pick them up, whether the players want picking up, because that's kind of the underlying question now, isn't it? That people are genuinely asking, do these players actually give a shit? And I think come 5 o'clock Saturday, we'll probably have a reasonable answer to that question. I think in the absence of any evidence to the contrary, I will give them one last benefit of the doubt and go with a ground out but slightly horrible 2-1 win.
I think that would be absolutely magic. I mean, I don't think that many people can take much more of this, really. I'm desperate for Will still to turn it around, I guess, to get at least this next result. Yes, he's made his mistakes in that game on the weekend, I think. But I think by and large, there's been a lot of mitigating factors. He's been let down by a lot of people. And he's a good bloke. I know people don't care. He's a manager. He's not a bloke. But he is a good bloke. And I think he's came to the club with a good record in a different league. I think he's probably learned a lot about the Championship. I think he's definitely been taken by surprise by a few bits. But I can't be doing another manager so soon. So I just hope that they can just turn it around a little bit. I'm desperate for that this weekend.
Yeah, well, just to summarise it, Alfie, you went 2-1 win. Glen 1-1. Steve 2-1 win. If anybody's remotely interested, I'm going for a 2-2 draw, but it'll be a horrible one because one team will be winning 2-1 with about 3 minutes to go, and we're either going to scrape a draw or we're going to concede at the last minute. That's how I can see that panning out. If you want to play along at home, all you need to do is use your Patreon login. You'll find the leaderboard and how to play on our website. Just visit our website, all the W's, totalsaints.co.uk. Conscious of time eating into people's Sunday evening, but we should just do a little bit of any other business. I guess the biggest non-footballing story or non-on-the-pitch story centering around Johannes Spoors, the director of sporting director, very heavily linked this week with a move to Juventus. He's only been with us 7 or 8 months, I suppose. We've all seen the story, but I guess once again, Alfie, you're probably closest to it.
Not particularly, not any more than any of you. I think what we can deduce, I guess, is that Johannes Spoors would probably say that it's just rumours, but that is what Jason Wilcox said when he went to Man United. These things don't tend to come, without fire. This smoke doesn't usually come without fire. 99.9% of sort of player transfer rumours are bollocks. But I think when it comes to this sort of technical board level stuff, it does tend to be that there's something in it. The only thing that I suppose you could counteract it by saying is that it came directly after Johannes got some fairly sort of pointed and named criticism for maybe one of the first times. Obviously, following the Bristol City game, and it came within the 12 hours after that. So, maybe it could be as simple as he's put his name out there to try and lift his reputation back off the floor and to try and make people think, oh, we're going to lose him to Juventus. We should back him.
Absolutely I mean, if that's the case, that's absolutely.
Yeah, I'm not saying that is the case.
Pathetically thin-skinned.
Yeah, I'm not saying that is the case, but that is a possibility. And obviously, there are egos in the game that would do that. Whether Johannes is one of them or not, we don't know. But the point is, it does suggest
maybe you could do an interview with him, mate.
That would be lovely, wouldn't it? Yeah, that would be lovely.
I assume you've asked.
Oh, we've asked. Yeah, we've asked. Yeah. And no, it's not the right time for whatever number of reasons.
Yeah, when will it be, right?
Yeah, and it is what it is. I've been through that already on a different pod, on this pod last week. I think that it suggests that the most likely outcome, it does feel like he probably will end up going to Juventus, just because of what I said about it. It doesn't usually come out. It's what it means, I guess, is the question that Glenn and Steve can answer. Is it a massive blow? It's certainly not ideal to have to keep on replacing people all the time and to sort of lay these plans that are supposedly long term and then to have to rip them up 6 months later. So what is genuinely the third or fourth time if it happens? But yeah, I'll let Glenn and Steve talk.
Well, as long as they don't put Rasmus Ankersen back in the same position, then that wouldn't be great if that happened. But yeah, I mean, basically, if there's any truth in it, he's gone, isn't he? No one turns down Juventus to stay at Southampton. So if that's the case, he's going, and they better start looking for someone else, especially as January is looming, and it's going to be pretty important by the look of it, because where are we going to be in January? Somewhere between 14th and bottom. So that's the way it's looking at the moment. So yeah, there's going to be a lot of work to do. So and if he's going, I hope he goes tomorrow, and just gives you as much time to because it's probably a relatively quiet period for him at the moment. So yeah, get it done quickly if he's going. But if he goes, he goes. I mean, we won't. As Alfie said earlier, we won't really know how good his transfer window has been for a while. There are some positives and there are some things that may turn out well, but it's unfortunate that the one signing he made that we needed to hit the ground running was the centre forward, and that obviously hasn't happened. So and that tends to be what he gets judged on at the moment. But yeah. We'll have to wait and see how big a loss he'll be. I don't think we're going to know. But if he does go, get on with it.
Yeah, don't drag it out, I guess, is what you're saying. And we won't either with the podcast. The great thing about doing a great podcast is knowing when you're finished, and we've finished. So that's all we've got time for. I'd like to thank all three of you guys for getting us through a podcast without mentioning, for the first time for weeks, the words scar tissue. You've done well. Now you can follow the Total Saints podcast on all of the social media platforms. Of course, it's at Total Saints Pod, and check out the TSP merch store. That's at shop.totalsaints.co.uk. And as I mentioned earlier, we're also on Patreon, so there you can support the podcast with a monthly contribution. Visit patreon.com/Total Saints Podcast. Now, each of the tiers comes with its own perks, including weekly shout outs for those patrons in our Francis Benali and the Mick Shannon tiers. So here we go. Thank you to Dave Melton, Andy Hollis, Anthony Thompson, Gavin Ford, James Heron, Nick Nicholson, Peter Montebellano, Southampton NY, Drew Dyer, James Kibbe, Red 76 Tax, sounds like an advert, Michael Blackmer and David Mansell in the Francis Benali tier, and also to Nick Reed, Dave Ernsberger, Nick Hingston, Paul Cook, Jonathan Cooper, Colt Baker, Anthony Thompson, Matt Hall, Mike Etheridge, Philip Hostrup, Mark Littlewood, James Balbin, John Bevan, Frank Thorpe, John Peacock, and Andy in our Mick Shannon tier. A huge thank you to Paul Castle Associates and the Steamtown Brewery for sponsoring TSP this season. And of course, the biggest thank you to Steve, to Glenn, and to Alfie. And thank you, of course, for watching and listening. And we'll see you all again next time.